Hello, hello, hello. It is Monday, so it is Mentorship Monday time. So hello to everyone. I'm going to give it a couple of seconds, a few minutes. So let's see. I'm placing my bet on Avetanda being first on. Inga, you beat Avetanda to it. Hi, Avetanda. Hi, Inga. Ndo, hello to you. Wigu Africa. Sizinka, hi. Given, hello. Nomi and Sugolihle, oh, what a beautiful name. Pumla, Mrs. Y. Hi, guys. Namtla, Nosisa, Lorinko or Lorinko. I'm not sure. Snekugu. Thank you, Avatanda. I do have makeup on and I've got a filter because my makeup it's been a long day. Hi, guys. Who's saying hello, Mama Lelo? So yeah, finally now we can say it openly. Thank you, my love. And Tabaling says Dumelang, Likai Tabising. Hi guys. Selena, hello to you. Posisa, Mbale Zintle. Oh gosh, you guys have such beautiful names. Nosisangabonga, thank you so much. Hi Sam. Sam is from St. John's in Maritzburg. Tema, thank you very much. I want to say a lot of hellos while we're waiting on for our special guest today, none other than Shudu. So we're really excited that we have our very own Miss South Africa 2020, who's going to be joining us shortly. Thank you guys so much for all the amazing questions that you sent to her. I want to just pull them up. And I do want to say thank you for all the love that you guys were sharing after I posted a picture of me and little one. You guys have just showered me with so much love, and I just want to say thank you. Yes, Butle, I hope it's been a glow. It's been a bit tough, but we push through and we get things done. I mean, we're trying to normalize the fact that we take on different identities and we can still do the work that's required of us, even while being kind and caring towards ourselves. Noxin Gabonga, thank you very much. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for all the love. I really appreciate it. I do want to shout out to all the guys who actually attended the live masterclass on Friday. Where are you? I'd love to know if you attended the masterclass so I can shout you out. Let me know. We had an incredible time, an absolutely incredible time. And I think, you know, part of that incredible time was also about cementing the fact that, guys, we've started something. We're starting a movement and we are absolutely normalizing mentorship here. And so I can't wait for us to take this to other cities. Wiggy, thank you. We're here. It was amazing. Thank you very much. I had moments. I had so many moments of being teary. And guys, it's not because of the little one. Literally, there were moments that were just so moving. The authenticity, you know, was just amazing. Avatanda says, "Yo, Nosy, when you cried last week, I was worried. Good to know why you were highly emotional." You know what, guys? I'm actually a very emotional person in general. I'm just a very emotional person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. When I feel, you know. And so, yes, some of it is hormonal, but some of it is just me. And you know, that's just, I'm that person. But I think, Wigu, you're right. The vulnerability of the speakers was beautiful. Ted, thank you for being there. It was, you know, it wasn't the stuff. And the brief for us was, you know, this is not what we don't want is people repeating stuff that we can Google, all the stuff that they've given on interviews, on other platforms, because that's the stuff that we already know. What we were interested in, of course, is the stuff that we don't know. You know, the stuff that is like, you know, absolutely just raw and authentic, and the untold stories and the unsaid truths. And I think that came out in absolute abundance. So I think we're going to Durban next. So Port Elizabeth, I see you, and I'm really hoping that we can make our way there as well. But I think we're going to Durban next, early next year. We're very excited. But I'm so keen. I'm keen for us to make sure that we are covering every every corner of the country and taking it continent-wide as well. You know, I always say to my team that we're not in the business of events. For us, this is not an event. We're not in the business of events. We're in the business of conversations. And sometimes it's going to take the form of an event, and sometimes it's going to take the form of something else. But in this instance, it was an event that was really, really super, super special. So I am buying a little bit of time just so that we can get, I just want to make sure, so we can get Shudu on. I haven't seen her on just yet. So Ndumiso, if you, oh, he's behind me. So Ndumiso, if you can just ping our special guest so that she knows that we are now officially live, that would be absolutely great. And Chibet, yes, we do want to come to Nairobi. And we do want to go to, you know, we want to go to Kigali, we want to go to Nairobi, we want to go to Lagos and Abuja. We want to go to Accra. You know, we want to go to Gaborone and have these conversations. But I think we've tested Joburg slash Pretoria. I don't know, Centurion, I suppose, is still Pretoria. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we can take this to other parts of the country as well. And I've gushed enough about the little one. So thank you guys again. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you for all the beautiful messages that so many of you sent me. Just congratulating Rory and I on this really, really special part of our life that we are now embarking on our first little one together. All right. So I don't have Mashudu on just yet. So I am going to keep going until she goes. We're hoping that she's going to join us very shortly. But in the meantime, it's always Mentorship Monday. It's always about you. It's always about your questions. It's always about the things that you want to talk about. Now, what's happened is that a lot of, I see Ndumiso sent a question saying she's under load shedding right now, but she's going to be joining us soon. Hey, South Africans and soon, and your all other languages. By the way, we're also load shedding, but we make a plan, you know, we make a plan and we make it work. So let's cross fingers that she does join us. I've got other people joining, asking to be added in the live, Ndumiso. So please just make sure that she's not joining as another. We've got Mukwena Dimpo, as well as Sneku Kuchiane, also requesting to join, and I don't think any of those Shudu. So, oh, and the lights just came on. So can we take off this extra light, because now I look super, super bright and I can't even see anything now. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna just move back a little bit, guys, because our lights have just come back on, and now Ngia topic. Okay, so I want to take a couple of questions that maybe I can answer in the meantime while we're waiting for Shudan. Of course, there are questions that you've sent that are specifically for her, so I'm not going to be able to answer those because I don't have that experience. But there was a question that I think that was very, very good, and I didn't actually apply myself to it because I was like, you know, Shudu will pick it up. But let me give it a shot, and let's see where we land with this question. And the question is, comes from Bushle Ngumalo. And Bushle, if and when Shudu joins, we'll ask the question again, right? And the question is, how do you block out external or internal noise in the midst of success? How do you block out internal or external noise in the midst of success? And I just thought, wow, it's such a beautiful question. And my gut sense when I was listening to that question as well, firstly, I think there's this perception that there's this place called success. There's this like point in your life where you're like, okay, now I'm successful. And suddenly, you know, the conversations around you change. For example, people are saying things, people are around you, and there's a lot of noise in the system. And I often think that part of the blocking out of the noise is first just having a little bit of clarity of what do you call the phase of your life that you're in. And I think there's a lot of connotations that come with I'm in a successful part of my life versus I'm growing into something new, and using that mindset to kind of wrap your head around, okay, if I'm growing into something new, what should I be tuning into and what should I be tuning out of? Because every phase in life comes with an invitation to tune into some things and to tune out of other things. And so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being successful. I think that we all define success as different things. I, for example, actually keep saying this, that I just think success is a byproduct of significance. It's what I'm in pursuit of is significance. So how do I live a life that when I die, the people whom I've touched and the people that I've engaged with can say that because Nosy lived, I was able to do this, or I was able to achieve that. And if that's how I live my life with that level of intentionality, then I think success as a byproduct of that is going to come. And what that means for me is that there are going to be moments where, as I try to live a life of significance, there's certain things I'm going to have to pay attention to far more than other things. And like drop his call. I'm hoping you guys can still hear me, because I know sometimes when someone tries to call you, it does kick out the audio a little bit. So please just let me know if you've lost my audio, and then we'll start again if we need to. So that was the point that I'm trying to make, is to say, before we start thinking that there's noise, not everything is noise. And I think if you remember some of the things that Legend spoke about on Friday, and he spoke about how, because we think everything is noise, sometimes we make the mistake of not listening to the people who are trying to point out that we're going the wrong way, that our ego has overtaken our connection to others, that we are leading with the fact that maybe we're more financially successful than the next person. And so because of this fear that we're going to be overwhelmed by the noise, we stop listening altogether. And I don't think all conversations, when you're doing well, are bad conversations, especially conversations. I'm going to try and find an English word for this, but I'm going to say it in Zulu first. Especially conversations asikhuzayo. Those conversations where people go, hey, by the way, I saw you showing up in this particular way, and I just wanted to give you some feedback. Oftentimes we then begin to think we're untouchable, and that everybody who's trying to give us feedback, they're jealous, or they're trying to hate on our achievement. And I think that's probably the time we should be listening the most, because every person who describes themselves as successful is always going to tell you that they'll tell you that success is lonely. I'm like, I don't know, guys. I think that's like a self-imposed thing. Success becomes lonely because we don't want to listen anymore. We don't want to take input anymore, because surely what I've achieved up until now is right. And therefore, every other input from everybody else is insufficient or wrong, or And I just think we need to be probably more intentional about listening. The more we achieve the things we set out to achieve for ourselves, and I think that's the challenge: is how do you keep listening when every indicator around you is telling you that which you've done up until this point has been sufficient for you to hit all the targets that you have been after. And that's really hard. I think when we're struggling and we're not where we want to be, it's much easier to listen to others, because we're looking for clues, we're looking for pathways. We're looking for people to shine the light around how should we go. We're looking for people to give us guidance about how we're showing up. And the minute things start happening, we stop listening to that. Then we alienate people because they're telling us things that we don't want to hear. And then in alienating people, we turn around and we say that success is lonely. And we say that, making it is difficult. I don't think I necessarily agree. Seti says, Nozi, does the feedback not also depend on who it's coming from? Shouldn't it be from someone who is doing the work themselves, been there and done that? So, Seti, I think that's a really great question. And my gut sense is that not necessarily, right? So Shudu's just joined. I'm just going to... Shudu, so if I know you've just joined, so maybe you just send me a quick request. Let me do that. And let me try add you, and we'll get. Okay, perfect. I've sent you an invite, Shudu. Oh, there she is. And
Hi.
just tell someone to keep quiet. How
Yes.
are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And how are you?
We're very, very good. We're so excited to have you. We have 156, 200 people right now and growing. I'm just so excited about the fact that we get to have you on Mentorship Monday. So thank you so much for making the time for us.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so sorry I'm late. Load shedding was just, yeah.
Well, you know the drill. We're just going to try and pack it in as much as possible and keep you as long as you have to go. So,
Right.
so Shudu, I had picked up one of the questions as we were waiting for you, but I know how Mentorship Monday, how the community works. The community spends a lot of time just really wanting to hear from the mentor who's joined us. And so I just want to let you know, we've got so many amazing questions that have been sent through to you. This is not about me and my thoughts. So I really want to be a conduit for the conversation today. And so I'm going to start off with a question that we got from Buhle that I had just answered. So over to you. And the question is, Buhle says, how do you block out noise, internal or external? How do you block out noise in the midst of all your success? What's your strategy for doing that?
I think it's just knowing your why. Sometimes we forget our why, so we get distracted by so many things, you know. And then especially in this industry, you find that there's so much noise and so many opinions about where you should be going and what you should be doing. But understanding why you started, understanding where you want to go is really, really important. So that's how I block out the noise, understanding why I started, understanding where it is I want to go, and things that keep me grounded, because the noise will always be there. So if you don't ground yourself or find your true north, you're always going to struggle.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on that because I think it's such a brilliant response. How do you stay grounded? You know, how do you make sure that your ego is not getting in the way? How do you make sure that you're still that girl that was accessible to other people on campus? You know, when you were a student at Tax, or where you grew up, or your friends that you maybe work out with. How do you make sure that in the midst of all the amazing things that are happening for you and happening with you and happening through you, that you are still that same person that they're able to access and have just normal conversations with?
I think my family really helps a lot, and my friends. My family calls me Abby, and then my friends call me Abby. So every time when I go out and I'm in the public, yes, my first name is Shudufhadzo, and I love my name. But I always just remember being in the village and having someone call me Abby. As soon as that happens, it's almost like an automatic click. As soon as my mom says that, I'm not Miss South Africa, I'm not the author, I'm not anything. I'm just a person, I'm just a human being. And I think that just goes back to, in as much as you need to respect and be kind to others, it just goes back to respecting and being kind to yourself as well, because, and respecting others too, because being grounded is looking at everyone and knowing that they're deserving of respect because they're human. So those things keep me grounded. Those things keep me sane, and just having a good support system, and knowing that when I have conversation, I can be serious if I want to, but I never forget my personality or alter who I am just to fit into a room. I always just remember my why, because I think showing up as you are is the most important thing. And I know for many women, we feel like we need to alter how we enter rooms and how we present ourselves. But understanding that who we are, and how we are made, but over and above that, remembering our why is so important, and also knowing that it's enough.
Sure. I love how you take, I mean, I almost can feel the sense of grounding that being called by a name that just brings you so much closer to ground does that. I mean, I always talk about, you know, when people call me nosy, and not nosy or nosy, but the way it is articulated amongst the people that I've grown up with, and someone says, we're nosy, you know, it's just, it's such a grounding feeling. And so I can absolutely connect with that. I wanna pick up a couple of more questions. Beatrice Kubu is asking the big what if question, and they're saying, well, what if you didn't win Miss SA? What would you have done with your life then? What was the plan? And of course, life has gone in a different way, but do you spend time reflecting on what if this wasn't the pathway that I had taken? And what do you think Shudu would have been doing today?
I was studying, so most of my work and most of my studies was centered around one thing. When I was 8 years old, I remember I knew that I wanted to lead a life of service. At the time, it looked like a blue roof with white walls where women and children could come and receive help. Now we've upgraded it to saying humanitarian assistance, but also the upliftment of their human rights as well, and the recognition of their human rights. But that's what I've always wanted to do. And honestly, when I entered Miss South Africa, my why was that, to lead a life of service. And in all honesty, I continue to do that. I did that as Miss South Africa, and I do it after. But even if I wasn't Miss South Africa, because Miss South Africa was never part of the plan. It was a crazy plan that I thought of in December 2019, where I just wanted to bring visibility to my heart. I wanted to bring visibility to my purpose. Because most of the time, it's not that we are not good enough. It's not that we are not working hard enough, but we just never really given the right platforms to show who we are. And that's where mentorship also comes in, because we are like mentors, and these kinds of conversations almost direct us in the direction that we're supposed to take. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I said, education does a lot, but sometimes it's not enough if you're not connected to the right spaces or people, or exposing yourself to those things. Like I came from a family where on the one side we have the academics, on the other side we have the academics but also entrepreneurs and everything else, but also trying to find your own path within that. Because growing up in the village, there were like 5 career choices: doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse, policeman, policewoman, like, you know, those things. But then I was never really exposed to international relations. I was never exposed to a PPE. But because of the people I was surrounding myself with, and the mentorship that I got, I knew those things were possible. But I've always known that the direction that I need to take is leading a life of service. So if Miss South Africa provided me the platform, brought visibility to the things that I wanted to do, people got to understand me better, but also it was coupled with or accompanied by hard work and also determination to know that the title does not make me or alter anything that I wanted to do with my life before that. It just helps. It's a catalyst to help me get there.
Yeah, I think that's excellent, because it fits in with so many conversations we've had with the community about, you know, the difference between you know, purpose and platform, and that there's, you know, purpose remains consistent because it's interwoven, it's designed into your DNA. It's the reason why you're here. And that, excuse me, there'll be different platforms for you to live out and profess that purpose. And that's why we talk about different professions throughout the time of our lives, because we are just using platforms to profess that. And I think that's, you know, that's really amazing to hear you say that. And I'm literally disciplining myself to not hog you to myself, so I can pick up other questions. So there's a question from Anezo. Anezo is saying, as an advocate of mental health, what are some of the biggest issues that you think that you're really helping the country to talk through and to work through?
It's something that we're grounded on or know the importance of as South Africans, and that's education. Mental health education specifically. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but I can bring people in the room that can have conversations and educate others, including myself, and basically remove the stigma from mental illnesses and mental health. So I think how I assist is basically we fear what we don't know. But imagine if we were given information and we're empowered with information to understand our minds. Our minds are the powerhouse. You know, I always say it is the tool that can change all narratives, because once, you know that thing when they say, as a man thinketh, so is he. But
Yeah.
imagine you have a troubled mind. Imagine you don't understand how you feel. Sometimes you enter rooms and you're just trying to figure out. I read a book called What Happened. I think it's called What Happened to. Is it What Happened to Me? What Happened to
What
Us?
happened to you?
Yes, yeah. What happened to you? And it said the question that we ask ourselves most of the time is, what's wrong with me, not what happened to me. But imagine if someone can educate us and help us understand that everything is interlinked. You know, in as much as as physical health is important, mental health is important too. But we can only know that by understanding that, by being educated about mental health. And that's where I come in, because there are a lot of organizations like SADC that are doing like amazing work. A lot of psychologists and psychiatrists who freely donate their time to make sure that people at least have access to information, if not resources, you know, or access to care. But it also brings visibility to actually engage all stakeholders involved, be it government, be it corporations, about the mental health of their employees. But it just really removes the stigma and brings what do you call the self-awareness and also mental health awareness to the forefront.
So I want to stay with that a little bit, Shudu, because I think oftentimes the work we end up doing in the world is rooted somewhere. You know, either it's a personal experience or it's an observation that makes us go, I've got to do something about this. It's often a very personal motivation or personal trigger that pushes us to do that. And I'm keen to tune into your own life story and to ask the question, what's led you to this? What led you to, you know, feeling that the work that needs to be done around mental health is work that you've got to do? Because I think we've all, for quite a long time, understood that Black communities in particular, we haven't really paid attention, and we've found a whole lot of different ways to fob off mental health and call it something else other than what it really, really is. What led you here? What made you feel that this is the job that you've got to do?
I think what you just said now, always having a different name to address mental illnesses and mental health, never really directing it as it is, you know. I grew up in a village where you hear people saying, "Hey, holo ya penga," you know, like that's what they used. That person is crazy, but you don't. And once you sit down and you actually listen to what this person is going through, what they've gone through, you just start asking yourself questions, because it's impossible for everyone to just be crazy. There has to be a reason behind it, and if it's not that, we are associating it to spirituality, which is granted, especially as an African community, and especially because we're on the African continent. But sometimes it's important to ask the right questions. Sometimes it's important to just understand, you know. And growing up, I never understood. I was just like, no ways, this person is not crazy. I've sat down and I've spoken to this person, but we are conditioned to think that people that live with mental illnesses, there's labels for them. They're often vilified, you know, and it's not nice. And only when I started struggling with anxiety, and this was like grade 11, it only got worse in grade 11, actually, let me say that. And I just couldn't understand what was happening. And I remember I asked to just go see a therapist. And then the question they ask you is, which one of your friends told you about this? You know, like it's almost like something that's not supposed to be spoken about. So I left it, and it festered. And when I got to university, there was a time where I had to miss 2 weeks of school because I just couldn't go to class. I was too anxious to go to class, but I didn't know that it was called anxiety. And then I just decided I'm going to see someone. Even if it doesn't work, it's fine. At least let me just understand what is happening, because I know that there's nothing wrong with me. I just need help. I got there, and yeah, and it felt good to feel like you're not alone. It felt good to feel like you're understood. It felt good to know that it is okay to not be okay. It felt good to know, especially as a young Black woman, to know that I don't always have to be strong or to pretend to be strong. And that was so important for me. So when I entered Miss South Africa, my focus has always been educational and economic empowerment because of where I come from. But I realized those things are impossible if you don't tackle the mind. And I could use my own personal story as an example. Like when I was in class, there was a class that I did not want to go to, and it was a stats class. And I was just not doing well, because when I got there, I felt like a decoration. I felt overwhelmed, but I just felt like I couldn't ask for help because I was too scared to be judged. So my marks went down. They kept on going down. And then at some point, like I got 35% for a test, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't afford to fail. And then I took the 2 weeks off, but I just gave up. You know, you just give up and you're just discouraged. And my mind was in a really dark place. And when I got help, it was funny how I got encouraged again, inspired again to work harder, to understand that nothing is bigger than me. And I will never be given a challenge that I cannot conquer. There's just no way. So the change in mindset, being empowered, but also understanding that when I'm struggling, it's okay to ask for help. I got a tutor, started speaking to my lecturers, but also understanding that it doesn't make me weak, like in any way. And then I got 97% for my final exam for stats. And it was such a big moment for me, but I realized that I couldn't have done that if I was still in that state that I was in 3 months or like 6 months before that. And when I was looking at education and looking at where I come from, there are children that go to school without eating, and we expect them to excel. There are children that come from really really disadvantaged backgrounds, and I've seen it. And it's impossible to tell that child, hey, you just need to get A's, and this is, you know, like we can tell them that, but you need to give them the resources to be able to succeed. But we take all of that away and we expect them to be okay. So before I could speak about educational and economic empowerment, it was important for me to speak about mental empowerment, you know, the mind, the powerhouse. And when I went on the Miss South Africa stage, I decided to speak about what was true to me, mental health. Not only my mental health, but the mental health of so many people that feel like they can't speak up.
Yeah, I think that's so excellent. The analogy that you've painted for me is, I'm almost thinking about, you know, tending the soil. If you're going to plant anything in there, whether it's, you know, seeds for education or seeds for economic empowerment, you've got to ask yourself, is the soil ready? And has the soil been prepared? And for me, that's the mental empowerment that you're talking about, that you can't actually plant anything until, you know, the soil is ready to receive that. So I've turned off comments because people are complaining that they can't see your face. Now, guys, nobody's ever complained when I've been on a live that nobody can't see your face. So guys, the double standards, I can see that. So I've turned off comments, but I'm going to pull up a couple of questions now that have come through. There's a question that's come through, and the question is, have you had any career opportunities that you have declined? And, you know, these are career opportunities that really look great at first glance. And what was your why for declining?
I have, but the long game. The reason I decline things is because I think about the long game. Sometimes we think about things like right now, and we plan and basically live and show up for now. The money may be great now, but then does it fit into your long-term why? Because, you know, like, you can't be making decisions for now that will basically what's the word? That will basically deter you from your long-term why. I don't believe in making short-term decisions. It needs to make sense in the long term for me. And when it doesn't fit into that why that I was speaking about earlier, the initial why, then there's no need for me to do it, you know. And sometimes you're going to have to really make uncomfortable decisions, really difficult decisions, especially when it doesn't align with your ethics, your values, and who you are as well, over and above your why. But then those things are part of your why. So yeah, I have.
Sure. I think that's a very interesting question, because I can imagine when the financial incentive looks so good, there's always going to be that temptation to say, no, I'll take care of the long game later. But right now, let me secure the bag, or whatever the phrase is, and the discipline to stay true to your purpose, and the discipline to say, that is not me. I don't answer to opportunities like that. I can imagine isn't something that's very easy to do. So let me pull up another one. Okay. Oh, all right. So there's a quick comment. I want to just read you the comment. The comment comes from Sam Duckworth. She's a teacher, a librarian, a teacher from one of the schools in KZN, and she says, I have no question. I just want to thank you for writing the books that our children need to be reading. And I think it's such a beautiful way of maybe talking a little bit about that. Because I would imagine that that also takes a leap of faith to believe that you can capture in a book both the challenges, but also the breakthroughs and the opportunities for people to see themselves in the pages of that book. What was your process of arriving at a place where you felt that actually I can do this, and actually I'm going to do that?
I think it was, and thank you so much. Writing Shudufhadzo Magic was a healing process for me. It was basically answering that why. You know, sometimes when we speak about important issues, or we're speaking about empowerment, we forget to give children a seat at the table. And we forget, like you were saying, to water that plant, but also make sure that the soil is fertile for that to happen. And that was my process to getting there, knowing that my story matters, but also knowing that it's important to make sure that it's educational. So working with a child psychologist, making sure that it was a collaborative process, and just knowing that our stories as Africans in general, they really matter, you know, and we can always tell them from our own voices as well. And representation, because growing up, I would read books, I'd watch movies, and not see myself in any of those stories, you know. But if you sit down in a group of people, let's say 10, especially like just in South Africa, there's so many similarities more than differences, right? But the only way we can embrace those similarities is also if we embrace the differences. And that's who we are as a people, and that's the reason I wrote it in 6 languages, and hopefully I'll write it in the 5 other languages as well, the 6th one too. And it was really important to just empower children, especially the same way that I was empowered, but much later in my life.
And I want to stay on the topic of children, Shuda. And I mean, one of the questions that always comes up for me in the conversations that I moderate are questions around the boy child. And there's always this question to say, we're doing a great job in terms of shining the spotlight on girl children, making sure that we are empowering them, we are creating systems so that we are protecting them. But do we not run the risk of replicating some of the issues we find in society, because we might be leaving the boy child behind? And I'm keen to get a sense of, in those conversations, what does your voice sound like? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think in empowering the girl child, we're necessarily leaving behind the boy child. I mean, when we educate, or we are representing the girl child, and also just educating on gender equality, it's not leaving out the boy child, because we're not saying one is more important than the other. It's engaging them in those conversations, and also engaging them in the education around that too. I think we have this thing that when we fix one thing, we have to neglect the other, but we can address both, and address both the girl child and the boy child in one conversation, from different perspectives, and help them see each other, hear each other as well, because that's how we build an equal society. By educating the girl child, we are sort of addressing the societal structures that have been built and that neglect them as well. But it doesn't mean we are neglecting the boy child.
Lovely. So I'm going to pick up a couple more questions. I'm seeing they're flowing in.
I might go in like 5 minutes. So sorry, guys.
Okay. So let's take this last one. And I'm going to take it from, oh, there it is. So the question is, what do you do, Shudu, when things get really overwhelming? How do you keep yourself calm? And how do you manage to stay in the zone?
I think just remembering my why again, but also being grounded by the things that are good in my life. But I'm not above calling and asking for help when I need it, when I feel overwhelmed. It's so important to me to do that. That's why I have my tribe. That's why I have my family. That's why I have my therapist. Those things keep me together. You know, I'm not above asking for help, because that strong narrative sometimes is the thing that debilitates us as human beings.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I know you've got to run, so we're not going to keep you for another minute, other than to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. The Mentorship Monday community absolutely, absolutely appreciates you, and onwards and upwards and more light to every single thing that you do.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for continuing to inspire us. And also congratulations on your baby.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for these sessions, because I was speaking to my mentor and saying, you don't understand how important mentorship is, you know, how important these conversations are. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Shudu. Cheers.
Bye.
All right, guys, we've got 20 minutes. So I'm going to keep us going. I'm going to put back the comments, because I'm sure you don't need to see my face. I'm going to turn back the comments. Sure. Okay, so I'm hoping that you can see the comments, or I can see them so I can pick them up. I just wanted to say, okay, firstly, a big thank you to Shudu, but thank you guys for your amazing questions. I'm trying to see if there's any commentary. Oh, there are lots of questions that we didn't get to, guys. I'm so sorry. We had absolutely 20-30 minutes with her, and I think she did such an excellent job of taking on those questions. I do want to pick up a couple of more comments if you have any for me. There was a question that I was busy dealing with, I think just before Shudu joined. So, but I've lost my train of thoughts. But hopefully, you know, we'll pick that up when we come back. Somebody had sent a question that says, Nozi, please ask Shudu how she maintains a slim body. I definitely can't answer that one. I don't have a slim body. Shudu is gone. So we'll have to absolutely park that one. But I'm keen to see if you guys have any other questions. All I'm seeing is, okay, there you go. Right. So Pretty Lady says, great conversation. Okay, Khoite says, what do you think about toxic positivity, Sis Nozi? Sure, guys, I feel like Khoite needs to educate us. So, Khoite, firstly, give us a definition of what do you mean by toxic positivity? I'll give you my gut sense of what I think it is. It is not being able to tune into the not so positive side. So everything is always great. Everything is always positive. And that in itself becomes a barrier to a lot of things. But please, can you clarify for us before I go off on an absolute tangent? Because I don't know the definition of toxic positivity exactly. So I'll pick it up in the comment if you post about it. Mazibugo D27, thank you so much. Mazibugo saying, I really enjoyed the conversation. Okay, Maseko, let's pick this up. Maseko says, Nozi, do you believe in therapy? Do you think one needs a personal therapist? And the answer is yes, and yes, and yes. And I didn't always believe in therapy. I think part of therapy was two things, actually. I met someone who I'm married to now who is an absolute believer in therapy. And it was just so shocking for me to find a man who's such a believer in therapy, and not because something is wrong, who believes in therapy because he believes that in the same way that we go to gym and we work out and we maintain our physical health, it's just as important to maintain your psychological health by going consistently, just to go see a therapist, to unblock things and unlock things, and to talk through things, and to also bring to the surface things that you might not even be aware that you're going through. So that was my first sort of push, because he was like, why aren't you seeing a therapist? I'm like, well, there's nothing wrong with me. And he's like, no, but therapy's has nothing to do with you having anything wrong. And so my husband was a big influence in me really embracing therapy, and really going religiously through the process of actually going to see a therapist. And then the other thing that was a big push for me was when my mom passed, and I realized that I didn't have the tools to actually deal with the passing of my mother. And I really needed help. And so in that particular instance, I actually got a therapist who specializes in grief counseling. And that was super important for me, because I needed somebody who could give me the tools. And I think what was really nice about going through that process, which I can say now in hindsight to say it was nice, was that she didn't mollycoddle me. So it wasn't about, Nomthandazo, I'm just going to pin your question. It wasn't about, oh, come, let me give you a hug, let me make you feel better. It was absolutely about, let's talk about, in fact, this was her process. She said to me, let's talk about the days that you feel like you cannot survive because you are reminded of the loss that you're going through. And initially it was like, yeah, but that's every day, because my mom and I used to speak on the phone every single day without fail at 7 o'clock in the morning. And so there would be days where I'd be driving to work and I'd forget that she's passed, and I'd pick up my phone and call. And it would just come back like a wave, you know, that I had this big loss. But with time, I started realizing that there were other days that were triggers for me. So her birthday, her death date, her funeral, my birthday, because she always had a thing to say. She used to always call me like a minute after midnight, because she used to say that I'm going to be the person who calls you first because I gave birth to you, before everybody else wishes you a happy birthday. And so all of those days were really difficult. And what my therapist did is that she gave me tools to survive those days. And so I just found that it was just so helpful to have somebody give me something practical that I can think about and do when I felt that I was being overwhelmed by grief. And ever since then, I'm a big believer in therapy. I'm a big advocate for therapy. And I just think, find yourself a good therapist, and you will, you know, it's going to probably be the best investment that you can do for yourself. Okay. Nomthandazo says, Nomthandazo, I want to make sure that I haven't now missed your question. I'm going all the way back. Nomthandazo says, do you truly think young people from township schools are always represented? My view is most people are doing well, must come from good schools, which sets a good foundation for them. Sure. So I think that's such a difficult question. So paraphrasing that, so now Deek is just saying, yes, Nomthandazo, township people are represented in my space. I see most young people from rurals and townships. So let me paraphrase the question, because I think it's such a good question. What you're saying is, when we look at people who are successful around us, do we often see people who come from the rural and township areas, or are we seeing people who have been privileged enough to go to good schools? And I think your question is so good. In fact, it takes me back to my second master's, my dissertation. I did a second master's in development finance, and my dissertation was about NSFAS, the financial aid scheme. And one of the findings that I found in my research for that dissertation, and I'm going to ask you to hear me clearly because I'm going to explain what I'm going to say, is that poor students who come from poor areas, who go to poor schools, tend to perform poorly, and therefore have a higher probability of being locked into poverty. And that actually, if you look at the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, the big opportunity is that if they just change their funding model to, and at that time, this was 2015 when I was writing this, that if they change their funding model away from just funding tuition and accommodation and funded students comprehensively, so funded students for a higher value. So in other words, paid for tuition, paid for accommodation, paid for food, paid for medical aid, paid for equipment. And so all of the things that children who would otherwise go to good schools have access to, if we did that for the kids who are coming in below the means test, therefore having proven that they're poor, that's the way we give them a fighting chance in the world. Because my experience has been, and I remember, again, doing another degree, well, it wasn't a degree, it was a certificate. I was doing a marketing certificate at WITS at some points in the evening. And I remember going to class in the evening, and by then I was working, I was driving. And I remember this one boy came up to me and he said to me, "Do you know where the tap is? I'm so thirsty." And I looked at this young man, I thought to myself, jeepers, if this guy is, you know, the look on his face is like, this guy is not only thirsty, he's hungry too. And he's fought his way all the way to be at WITS. What are the chances that he's going to complete that degree in a competitive environment against kids who have every privilege that you can think of? Kids who are fed, kids who are coming to school being driven, dropped off by their parents or staying in res, kids that have medical aid, so when they're sick, they've got somebody and some sort of access to healthcare, kids that have all the equipment that's required, they've got the laptops, they've got the textbooks, they've got everything. And the expectation that he's going to perform the same or better is actually a high expectation. Now, I'm not saying, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that poor people are not smart. But I'm saying that sometimes the way we support those who come from poor backgrounds is insufficient. And so we think we're giving them a fighting chance by just opening the door. And what we actually need to be doing is leveling the playing field so that they really have a fighting chance against the kids who are privileged. And I think when we begin to do that as a country, we're actually going to really see more qualified graduates coming in from the rural areas, coming in from the townships, because they have a fighting chance to make it in a system that is oftentimes geared towards people who are already privileged. And so, Nomthandazo, to some extent, I do agree with you that every time we see a person who comes from a rural context or a township making it, we still have reason to celebrate, because we know that that's not the story of every single person who comes from those communities. And it's oftentimes the rare exception, the kid, the lucky one. And I just think that we need to get to a place as a country where it can't be dependent on the rarity and being the exception and being the lucky one to make it just because of where you were born and the community and the background from which you come from. So that's my personal view. I thank you very much for the question, because I think until we are able to have like really authentic conversations, we're probably not going to be able to fix this issue. You guys know I've spoken about cognitive bandwidth a couple of mentorship Mondays away, and you can imagine that a kid who's coming from the rural areas or township who still needs to catch 2 taxis to make it to UJ, 2 taxis back, doesn't have the laptop, doesn't have the textbooks, needs to think about how they're going to photocopy the textbooks ahead of the test, still needs to get home, cook for their siblings, do their household chores, compared to the kid who's just walking across to res, that the performance of those people is not going to be the same. So we need to do a better job as a country. And one of the ways in which we start is we do a better job with NSFAS, including, and I'm going to say this, people who got NSFAS and never paid back. We need to address those people. So I was an NSFAS beneficiary. I am here today because NSFAS paid for my school fees. There wasn't a chance that my parents or my family could have afforded me the education that I ended up getting. And so one of the first things that I did is that when I started working, I declared my income and made sure that I paid back my student loan in full, so that the next person who comes after me has a fighting chance, just like I was given a fighting chance. So I'm going to get off that soapbox because I could talk about this forever. Okay, Shudu's gone, guys. No more questions for Shudu. Bonnie says, I'm a mental health practitioner and I definitely encourage people to see a therapist because talk therapy can help one to vent out their feelings and their frustrations. There was a question about access, and I think that's so important, guys. How do we, you know how we're making mentorship accessible? Somebody needs to come up with a solution about how do we make therapy accessible? How do we make it easy without having to pay a 950 consultation fee to actually get therapy? And I really think that we need to figure that out. Khoitse, thank you so much for your response. Okay. All right. Sehume says you have gained a follower. Ngiyabonga. I wish I could reflate, and I would. You said to say that I'm moved is an understatement. I've been educated. So we're just sharing here, Sehume, and so hopefully you will share as well. Nomtandaza says 100% share your answer. Very insightful. Thank you so much for understanding for my question. And now I feel really informed. Guys, for those who are asking about the saving of the life, we save the lives on our YouTube page. So you can actually go Google the YouTube page, Nozipho, or at the Conversation Strategist, or Google my name, Nozipho Shabalala. The YouTube page will come up and it's got every single one of our episodes up on that live. So you can always, up on the YouTube page, so you can always go back and watch all of them. CPA says the onus is also on the employed graduates to repay NSFAS in order to expand the funding, in order to give to those who come after us. I can't agree more. I think there's nothing worse as a person who's benefited from NSFAS for you to be working and not to be paying back your contribution. I think it is against the very essence of who we are as a people. And I really hope that if anybody is, is sitting there with the decision of, do I pay, do I not pay? Just pay. Give to others what was given to you so that we can all move on. Okay. I want to start picking up. I want to see if we've got 4 minutes left. I just want to see if there's anything left. Okay, guys, I think that's... Oh, so Matt is saying, Nosy, what type of therapist are you seeing? So right now, I am seeing a couples therapist because my husband and I are constantly cultivating the soil of our relationship. So we go to see a therapist every third Friday, and it really helps us just to keep communication lines open, to address issues that we sometimes find difficult to talk about, or fights that don't translate into the breakthroughs that we're looking for. So we have somebody that we're seeing for that. I also keep a coach. So I also have a professional coach who just helps me think through some of the things in my professional life and really helps me think about navigating the decisions I'm making about my life professionally. And I think, the thing that saddens me, and I think somebody raised the question here, the thing that saddens me is that if I put together all the money for the therapist, the money for the personal coach, I can see how inaccessible it is for the average person. It's expensive. And so we've got to find a way. We've got to figure out a way of how do we make mental health and therapy in particular somewhere where we can access it at not so much of a cost. So Inga, you're asking where do people find professional coaches? Just Google them. There's lots of them. In the same way you would just Google in the same way that you would just Google a therapist, you'll find a professional coach. I believe in the power of references, because when somebody says they've had a breakthrough working with a particular person, I can wrap my head around how that person probably comes vetted and so on. So I always think, find a person who's got a professional coach, ask them about the experience, ask them about the approach and the methodology, and go and try them. I use an organization called Numela. So maybe if you want to Google the person behind it, her name is Wendy Mahoney. Wendy Mahoney is Mahoney, and she calls she runs an organization called Numela, and they do professional coaching. So they go out of their way to work with you to help you navigate some of the big decisions. There are lots of other mentorship and coaching programs you can look at. I've spoken about traversing liminality before. Traversing liminality, look them up. I think the class for 2023 has already been chosen and closed, but just try your luck and see. Otherwise, you can be a part of that coaching program for the year that follows after that. But there's a lot of places you can go to. The challenge is, and I think this is the thing we've landed on today, it's not always affordable. Some of these programs are free, of course, but like the coach that I have is not free. It's the same as like seeing a therapist, so it is quite a bit of money every single month. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. This is where I say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. Next week, Monday, is the last Mentorship Monday for the year. I am going on leave. I'm going to take it easy. So I do want to just let you know, let's make it a big one next week. But from now, I just want to say thank you for your time. I just want to pick up this comment before it runs away. Boyd C says, at school, we used to cheer and rejoice for learners who got in the top 10 for those who come from deep rural areas because we understand the struggle. Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I am now going to go enjoy some time with my family. Yes, that's the one, Inga, Wendy Mahoney. Look her up. Absolutely amazing. And that's the journey that I am on right now. Thank you so much, guys. Cheers. Bye.